He was the last mortal to win the Ballon d'Or before the gods descended. This is the story of a player who glided where others ran, a beacon of elegance in a world of brute force. A man who reached the absolute summit of football only to see his kingdom crumble. To truly understand his genius, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss a moment of this incredible journey. It all begins in 2001. The scene is the final of the Torneo Rio São Paulo, a prestigious tournament that São Paulo had incredibly never won. They're facing Botafogo, and with the clock ticking down just 15 minutes away from the final whistle, the dream seems to be slipping away. The manager looks down his bench and makes a decision that feels like a gamble, a desperate roll of the dice. He calls over a young kid, a player who has only tasted professional football twice before. There's a murmur in the crowd, a sense of confusion. Who is this lanky teenager? 2 minutes later, nobody is asking that question. 2 minutes later, the stadium is in raptures. The kid has scored. And then he does it again. 2 goals in 2 minutes, a flash of lightning that illuminates the entire pitch. He single-handedly drags São Paulo to their first ever title in the tournament. As reporters scribbled in their notepads and fans chanted a new name. A look at the score sheet revealed that interesting name, Ricardo dos Santos Leite, known to the world simply as Kaka. His talent wasn't just noticeable. It was a force of nature, an undeniable torrent of skill and grace that was impossible to ignore. It was so potent, so raw, that European giants immediately began to circle. He would only spend 2 full seasons in his native Brazil. But what a 2 seasons they were. He played with a joy and freedom that was infectious, scoring 47 goals in 91 matches, a staggering return for a midfielder. At just 19 years old, he was crowned the Brazilian League's Player of the Year. Before Europe came calling, he would get his first taste of the biggest stage of all. He was named in Brazil's squad for the 2002 World Cup. Surrounded by legends, a constellation of stars like Ronaldo Rivaldo and Ronaldinho, he was the apprentice. Being so young, his role was limited, playing just 25 minutes in total throughout the tournament. But as Brazil lifted that famous trophy, a 19-year-old Kaka stood on the podium, a World Cup medal draped around his neck, a sign of the dizzying heights he was destined to reach. By 2003, the whispers from Europe had turned into a roar. The biggest clubs in the world were willing to do whatever it took to sign this Brazilian prodigy. In the end, it was the legendary AC Milan who won the race, securing his signature for a fee of just $8.5 million, a figure that in hindsight looks like one of the greatest bargains in football history. Arriving in Italy as a new signing, he spent his first few months coming off the bench, adapting to the tactical rigors of Serie A. But his light was too bright to be kept under wraps. Even in a limited role, he was involved in an incredible 21 goals that year. His driving runs and incisive passes breathing new life into the Milan attack. The Rossoneri, powered by their new star, would win the Scudetto. The following season, he was moved into a supporting role, playing just behind the legendary Andriy Shevchenko. It was a masterstroke. Freed from the primary goal-scoring burden, his creativity blossomed and his assist numbers skyrocketed. He became the creative heart of the team, the conductor of the orchestra. By the end of 2004, after just 1 full season in the league, he was named Serie A Player of the Year. It was official, a new king had been crowned in Italy. The 2004-2005 season would be a shocking one in terms of silverware. Despite boasting one of the strongest squads in the world, a team that dripped with talent in every position, AC Milan would end the year with only a single trophy, the Italian Super Cup. But despite the lack of collective honors, the year would be profoundly notable in Kaká's personal journey as he would reach his very first Champions League final. The stage was Istanbul, the opponent Liverpool. Milan were imperious in the first half. By the 44th minute, a moment of pure Kaka genius. He slices open the Liverpool defense with a pass that seems to bend time and space, setting up Hernan Crespo for Milan's third goal. 3-0 at halftime. The lead felt insurmountable. The team walked into the dressing room with an air of confidence, the famous trophy seemingly already in their grasp. But that night, that unforgettable night in Istanbul, would be remembered for entirely different reasons. Liverpool, in a dizzying, logic-defying blitz, scored 3 times in 6 minutes. The match went to penalties, and the dream crumbled into dust. Milan had lost. Even in the ashes of that devastating defeat, Kaká's individual brilliance had shone so brightly that he was still named the UEFA Midfielder of the Year. He had arrived. He had stared into the abyss of defeat, but his own star had never been brighter. It's in moments like these that character is forged. A devastating public failure on the world's biggest stage. Have you ever faced a moment like that? A setback that felt like the end of the world? How do you find the strength to come back from it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That summer, he would take part in his second international tournament, the 2005 Confederations Cup. This time, he wasn't a bit-part player. He was a cornerstone of the team. He played in all 5 matches, a blur of elegance and purpose, and even scored in the final as Brazil dismantled their rivals, Argentina. Once again, a trophy in the yellow and green. The next year, 2006, would be notorious for the Calciopoli scandal, a dark cloud that hung over Italian football. AC Milan were implicated and docked a staggering 30 points. It was a punishment that could have broken them, but incredibly, they rallied, finishing 3rd in the league in a testament to their resilience. That summer, Kaka went to his second World Cup. Brazil arrived in Germany with an attack that was the stuff of fantasy. Ronaldinho, Adriano Ronaldo Nazario, and Kaka. The Magic Quartet. It was an offensive lineup that sent shivers down the spines of defenders everywhere. Sadly, the team was unbalanced. Their defense was nowhere near as capable, and they would crash out to a Zinedine Zidane-inspired France in the quarterfinals. While the Calciopoli scandal could have been a permanent stain on his career, it was quickly overshadowed, easily looked past, because the very next year would be the absolute zenith of his powers. It would be the year of Kaká. With the departure of Shevchenko to Chelsea, Kaká's role shifted. He became a second striker, playing just behind the master poacher, Filippo Inzaghi. And he was unleashed. That year, he scored 19 goals, but it was in the Champions League where he ascended to a different plane. He scored 10 goals in the competition, a blur of devastating brilliance, involved in a goal every 87 minutes. He was simply unstoppable. The first great display of his strength came in the group stage, where he scored his first ever career hat-trick against Anderlecht. But his masterpiece, the performance that truly defined his season, came in the semi-finals against a formidable Manchester United. In the first leg at Old Trafford, the theater of dreams, Kaká put on a show for the ages. He scored twice 2 goals of breathtaking quality, a one-man demolition of a legendary defense. Though Milan lost that first match 3-2, the feeling was different. As one journalist wrote, "Few remember the final score, but everyone remembers Kaká's performance." In the final, they would meet a familiar foe, Liverpool. The ghosts of Istanbul lingered. This was a chance for redemption, a chance to rewrite history. And they seized it. Kaká once again was central to it all. He assisted Inzaghi's second goal of the night, the killer blow that secured the victory. AC Milan were champions of Europe, their 7th Champions League trophy. That season, Kaká became the first midfielder in the competition's history to score 10 or more goals. And the accolades kept coming. He became the last player to win the Ballon d'Or before the decade-long duopoly of Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi began. For 10 years, those two would pass the award between themselves. But in 2007, the best player on the planet was Ricardo Kaká. He was on top of the world, the undisputed king of football. It's a moment frozen in time, the absolute peak of a player's journey. If you love stories about the legends who defined eras, about the players who reached these incredible heights, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We have so many more of these journeys to share, and you won't want to miss what happens next. He kept his momentum going, winning the Club World Cup and the UEFA Super Cup as he headed into the next season. But these moments of glory would be the last for a while at AC Milan. The club began a heavy descent, a slow and painful decline that saw them fail to even qualify for the Champions League during his last 2 seasons in Italy. The magic was beginning to fade, not for Kaká, but for the team around him. His next iconic moments would come in the summer of 2009, wearing the yellow of Brazil. He took part in another Confederations Cup. Despite not playing in the Copa America that had secured Brazil's qualification, Kaká was elemental to the squad. He was the leader, the creative force, and he delivered a man-of-the-match performance in the final against a spirited USA side as Brazil won the tournament once again. Kaká took home the Golden Ball as the tournament's best player. As he returned from that international triumph, the news that had been bubbling under the surface was made official. Kaká was finally leaving Italy. He would join Real Madrid for a fee of 67 million, one of the highest transfer fees in history. He was to be the centerpiece of a new Galacticos project. But his blockbuster signing would soon be outshined as Real Madrid also brought in Cristiano Ronaldo. With the 2 most recent Ballon d'Or winners at the Santiago Bernabeu, the future looked blindingly bright. But for Kaká, it wouldn't look that way for much longer. After a first season where he struggled to adapt to a new league and a new system, looking for his place in a team brimming with stars, he went to his last ever World Cup in 2010. Despite finishing the tournament as the top assist provider, it ended in disappointment as Brazil were knocked out in the quarterfinals by the Netherlands. And then the worst happened. Kaká would suffer from severe complications with a long-standing knee injury. He was out for 8 months. The recovery was grueling, a long, dark tunnel with no clear end in sight. When he finally returned, it would only be for 2 months before he was out again. Another setback for a few weeks this time. When he came back, he looked promising, scoring twice against Valencia in a flash of his old self. He managed to finish the season without any more major injuries, a small victory in itself. The start of the next season would be his best period in a long time. He even won the Champions League Player of the Week award for his essential performance as Real Madrid defeated Ajax. He was involved in 24 goals across all competitions as Madrid under José Mourinho broke the record for the most points ever earned in a La Liga season, finally dethroning Barcelona. But in the Champions League, their journey would once again end in the semi-finals, with Kaká finishing as the tournament's top assist provider that season, a testament to his enduring class even when not fully fit. The next season would be his final one at Real Madrid. His form, hampered by persistent injuries and a lack of consistent rhythm, began to decline. He was no longer seen as a suitable option for the starting 11 in a team that demanded relentless perfection. By the start of the 2013-2014 season, it was announced that Kaká was leaving. In an unfortunate twist of timing, he left just as Real Madrid were about to embark on an era of historic dominance, winning 4 of the next 5 Champions League titles. He returned to AC Milan on a free transfer. A hero's welcome. In his first appearance back, he was handed the captain's armband. It felt like a fairy tale. But in his first competitive match, the fairy tale turned into a nightmare. He tore a thigh muscle. The player was so distraught, so devastated by another injury, that in a remarkable gesture of grace, he decided to forego his salary from the club while he remained sidelined. He would come back, and regardless of the moments of genius, he still produced, and there were many he was clearly a shadow of his past self. The explosive burst of speed was gone, replaced by a more measured, thoughtful style. And the AC Milan he had returned to was worse than ever, finishing a lowly 8th in the league. It was time to let go. And so he did. After only one season back at the San Siro, he left for the MLS signing for the new franchise Orlando City. In an odd turn of events before his American adventure began, he was loaned back to São Paulo, the club where it all started. He would play for them for just 4 months, a final emotional farewell, to Brazilian football finishing what was left of the season. His time in Orlando would be great. He was the superstar the new franchise was built around, and he helped bring them to relevance, even managing a stunning 4-0 victory over the defending champions, the LA Galaxy. His performances were good enough to earn him a place in the MLS All-Star game, where he would even captain the team. After all, it's not every day you have a Ballon d'Or winner playing in the league. In that All-Star match against Tottenham Hotspur, he scored and won the MVP award. But despite these individual highlights, he wasn't able to drag Orlando into the playoffs. The next season, the familiar curse struck again. He was out due to injury. Once he returned, he was still incredibly effective, nearly managing 1 goal contribution for every 100 minutes played, but it still wasn't enough to get the team to the playoffs. In his final season, it took only a few minutes of playing time before he fell to the ground, in pain. Out for weeks once again. This time when he came back, he looked significantly weaker. As the team failed to qualify for the playoffs for the 3rd straight year, he announced that this would be his last ever professional season. Kaka. He was quick, he was elegant, he was precise, and he was a hard-working, gliding midfielder. In his first years, it seemed like he had it in him to be one of the greatest of all time. But injuries stopped what could have been a much longer, more sustained reign at the very top. Some might even argue that the injuries weren't enough to stop him from achieving those heights that his peak, however brief, was enough to place him among the immortals. The time we witnessed him at his best was enough to realize he deserved his place amongst the greats. Regardless, he will forever be remembered as the man who climbed the podium while Ronaldo and Messi sat below him. Kaka was mesmerizing, and that is timeless. Now getting into our ranking system. Starting with finishing, we're talking about someone who scored many goals, but these didn't necessarily come from exceptional finishing alone, but from how easily he could ghost himself into dangerous positions. He gets an 8 out of 10. Kaka's influence on the pitch was as notorious as it gets. He was the focal point, the man who made everything happen. He gets a 10 out of 10. When it comes to playmaking, his dribbling always reminded me of Zidane. It was so smooth, so elegant, a pure pleasure to watch. He gets another 10 out of 10. In terms of his speed and physicality, he gets a 9 out of 10. He was tall and breathtakingly fast at the same time. But he wasn't necessarily one of the toughest players, which prevents him from getting a perfect score. And finally, his mentality. I don't think he was ever exceptional in this aspect, in the sense that he never seemed like a player desperate to win at all costs. But he was never problematic either. A true professional. He gets a 7 out of 10. When it comes to his legacy, we take into account his consistency. And although he wasn't the most consistent player across the multiple clubs he played for, that was probably due to the relentless injuries. He'll get a 7 out of 10. Now flair. They don't get much more aesthetically pleasing than Kaka. He was art on the pitch. He gets a 10 out of 10. His trophy cabinet is odd to say the least. Only 13 major titles, but within them, we have a World Cup and a Champions League. However, he barely contributed to that World Cup triumph, and with only 2 league titles in his entire career, he can only get a 7 out of 10. When it comes to longevity, it's honestly just sad. His absolute peak lasted about 4 seasons, maybe 7 if you want to be generous and count the first years in Europe and some of his time at Real. But that can only get him a 4 out of 10. Finally, the icon factor. I think he's, honestly, one of those players that younger fans have sort of forgotten that they don't really even remember. But that might be because of how short his prime was. The people who did see him, however, surely didn't forget him. He gets a 7 out of 10. That all adds up to a score of 79 out of 100, putting him right below Ronaldinho, which just shows how good he could have been had he not been so severely injured so soon. It only takes a look at his technical score to realize how truly special he was. And that's where this incredible football story concludes. What a journey, right? I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment stood out to you the most? Did this player's struggle resonate with you? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you. See you next time.